Seewald, and this is Authentic Parenting, a podcast about personal development in the context of parenting, where I explore how you can find more calm, connection, and joy in parenting through the process of self-discovery and inner growth with a trauma-informed lens. I'm a parent educator, and my mission is to help children by helping parents. The motto of this podcast is raising our children, growing ourselves. Today, a solo episode all about the 6 critical emotional needs of children. I want to give you an overview and some examples of the 6 critical emotional needs of children to help you better understand your children, their needs, identify their needs, and meet them so that their quote-unquote bad behavior will decrease, diminish, or completely disappear. So let's get started. I've been working with children, families, caregivers, parents, teachers for most of my career. I began my career in a correctional facility for juvenile delinquents. Then I worked with children in different education settings. I worked with children with autism, gifted children. I taught for many years. And for the past 13 years, I've been working with parents in my private practice. So through my work, I came to identify 6 emotional needs of children and base my work on those needs. As humans, we have needs. We are always trying to get our needs met through our behavior. And so when I explain to parents the 6 emotional needs, they become more empowered because they see their children through a completely different lens. They understand their children's behavior better, and they decode the behavior. They meet the need if possible. And so there is no need to correct the behavior or deal with the behavior, right? This is not a behavioral approach. So behavior is just a communication, a powerful form of communication. And as parents, when we learn to be a detective, decode the behavior, and uncover the main root cause, the underlying reason, or the need, then it becomes a lot easier for us. Instead of addressing the surface behavior, we are addressing the root cause. Oftentimes, it's a need. I have developed a framework for understanding challenging behaviors. It's called the 4-bucket framework. Even though today I want to talk to you about the emotional needs, it's important to say a few words about behavior because needs and behavior are connected. First, I want to say that I don't use the word misbehavior in my work because it's useless and it's not effective. So if you think about it, there is only behavior. Whether that behavior is challenging, triggering, annoying, undesirable, I prefer to use the term behavior. Because to me, if you say misbehavior, even though this might sound minor, but to me, it means there is the desirable behavior, the good one, and there is the misbehavior. And as a caregiver, as a parent, it sort of puts you in a place of control. Let me do something about this misbehavior so that it can turn into a good behavior, right? So I don't like to use this term. It's kind of demeaning, ineffective, and it's not helpful. And we often use it with children. We never use the term misbehavior with adults, which to me is very funny. And it's telling, right? Children are immature, they're young, they don't have life experience, they're still learning, their brains are still developing. So there is only behavior. That's how I see children, that's how I work. And all behavior is a powerful form of communication. In my work, I have developed a framework called the 4 buckets framework, which gives a deeper explanation to challenging, undesirable, difficult behaviors. One of the buckets is the needs bucket. That's the 3rd bucket. And that's what I want to talk to you today about. But of course, there is other reasons for challenging behaviors. Needs is just one aspect of it. It's the 3rd bucket. If you're curious and if you're interested, I have a class that I teach. It's called The Why of Challenging Behaviors and the How-To of Dealing with Them. Because the why is important. We want to understand children's behavior better, the root cause, the underlying reason, the hidden factors that contribute to children's challenging behaviors. And I don't view the behavior in isolation because I want to work with the whole child and not just the behavior. Because when we address the behavior through fear-based techniques, through rewards or punishments, they temporarily work, right? But if the behavior is rooted in something like an emotional need or is coming from the 4th bucket, trauma, sensory issues, or stress, or the first 2 buckets, then we're missing the mark. We're misunderstanding our child, and we're just seeing the behavior and addressing the surface behavior with behavior management tactics. And temporarily, they may work because it stops the behavior out of fear or rewards, which is the old model. And bad behavior, so to speak, quote unquote, bad behavior will persist because we're not addressing the root cause. And so one of the root causes is the needs, the emotional needs of children. So with that, if you're interested in that class, the why of challenging behaviors and the how-to of dealing with them, which is a fantastic class based in brain science and developmental psychology and polyvagal theory. It explains you the 4 buckets framework. It gives you tools and empowers you to understand your children better and change your perspective entirely from this old-fashioned way of thinking about children's behavior and having a more conscious approach. That class is available on my website. If you go to authenticparenting.com/services, you can see it's there for sale. I teach that class occasionally, but the recording is available for sale and it's under $50. Okay, so with that, let's get back to the needs. So there are 2 kinds of needs, emotional needs and physical needs. Physical needs are the needs for food, shelter, clothing. It's usually easy for most parents to identify and meet the physical needs. If your child is cranky in the afternoon, they may need a nap. If they didn't get a good night's sleep, they may not be in a happy mood in the morning. When you pick them up from preschool, they may need a snack. If they're sitting in their car seat in a heavy jacket and they're squirming and whining, you may remove the jacket and they feel much better. You control the temperature. If they need to use the bathroom, they may be a little hyperactive. So once they use the bathroom, they feel better, and on and on. So physical needs have signs, visible signs from outside, and many parents are pretty good at identifying them. Emotional needs, from the other hand, are difficult because they're not visible. And needs is a complicated topic because the way we were raised may play a role in how much we know about needs and how we approach this entire topic. But that's a whole another conversation. I don't want to go in there today. What I want to do is give you a better understanding of the 6 critical needs of children and help you understand those needs, identify them, and meet them as frequently as you can, so that you will be more connected, in tune, responsive, and sensitive to your children's needs. And you will avoid meltdowns, prevent temper tantrums, or quote unquote bad behaviors. In my work, I identify 6 emotional needs, and this is a good model for dealing with young children, especially because as children get older, their needs become more varied, more complex, and more nuanced. And when our basic needs are met, right, for example, if you're hungry and if you're poor, you cannot think about service or contribution to the society. Your basic needs have to be met for you to have more complicated, nuanced, complex needs. But for young children, I find that the basic 6 emotional needs is a good lens, and many parents really love the idea. And once you adopt this view, you start to see your children's behavior differently. And understanding their needs helps you, of course, helps you tremendously, and you meet their needs. You are more in sync with their needs. So in no particular order, because there is no hierarchy to the needs, here are the 6 needs that I work with: safety, respect, acceptance, autonomy, significance, and connection. They are all important, and they're kind of intertwined, right? Significance, acceptance, respect, connection, that they're connected, but they're not the same thing. And they're not in any particular order. I don't say connection is more important than autonomy, but safety is very, very important. It's foundational. It's fundamental to have safety, the emotional safety. When I talk about safety, I talk about emotional safety, even though physical safety is important too, right? As parents, we need to protect our children from harm, danger, injuries, etc., etc. But emotional safety is vital. If children don't feel safe emotionally in the families that they live in, then they cannot thrive. They cannot learn. They cannot explore. It's very, very important. Emotional safety. When you hear that expression, what do you understand? Of course, I can talk for hours about all of the needs, but I'm going to keep it short to give you an overview with some examples. And for emotional safety, I would say, imagine, you have a big house, you have a gate, you have a guard dog, you have physical protection from outside, and from inside you have locks. But does that child feel safe emotionally in that house, safe enough to be himself, to be herself, to express herself, and not fear her parents or her caregivers? Emotional safety is key for optimal development. If the parent is threatening, yelling, spanking, hitting the child, and the emotional safety is at risk, the child, even if it's not always, right, the child may not feel safe in that environment. One of the needs is the need for connection, is the need for attachment. We're wired for that. So if the person, if the caregiver, if the parent is a source of threat and connection at the same time, it's too confusing and disorienting and disorganizing for the child. This is why it's important for us to work with our own attachment wounds and take care of our own needs, do some healing work, address our own traumas and past losses, so that we can be more present, attuned, loving, and consistent caregivers for our children. Let's talk about the need for respect. Many people confuse the word respect with fear, right? People demand respect from their children. Don't talk to me like that. Be respectful. And how do we teach respect? Is by showing respect. The child has to feel that respect, to understand what it feels like in order to give it to us, to others, to themselves. They have to have that felt sense of respect. So when it comes to respect, do we interrupt our children? Let's say you are talking to your child and you get a phone call. How do you leave the conversation with your child to pick up the phone? Do you say, "Excuse me, sweetie, this is important phone call. I'll be right back," or you just leave and go and never come back? Never acknowledge your child that they are human. They are sitting there waiting for you. They're very, in subtle and small ways, we show disrespect to our children. And then we demand that they respect us. Let's say you are going to the grocery store and your child is nicely, happily engaged in their play, and you go into their room and pick them up without saying anything, interrupt the process that they were in, the mental processes or the beautiful flow that they were in. You pick them up immediately, or you drag them, or you just say, "Come on, we got to go to the grocery store." It can look differently for each individual, but the point is, they're human beings. They're sensitive. They're attuned to us. They learn very quickly. So imagine in that situation, if the parent went in, kneeled, and said something like, "Oh, what are you doing? What did you build? That looks interesting. Tell me a little bit about this." Showed some interest in the child's play. Instead of just barging in and interrupting, we go in gently and get the child's attention because they are involved in their play. We make a connection in the moment. We show interest in their activity respectfully. And then we say, "We have to go to the grocery store. I can't leave you home alone. When we come back, you can continue designing your tower," or whatever the child is doing. The child may not like it in that moment, but we did it respectfully. That makes a big difference. Or oftentimes I find that my daughter is 13. Let's say I'm out and about, and I meet someone, says, "Oh, hi, how old is your daughter?" But my daughter is right here, and she is old enough to speak and respond for herself. We talk about children in front of them as if they are not even present. We answer questions for them. We interrupt them. We force them to say sorry, thank you, and please, etc., etc. And so we show disrespect. But in order for kids to be respectful, we need to show them, we need to respect them first. They need to feel what it feels like. And respect, as I said, is not the same thing as fear. Let's move to the next need, which is the need for significance. Significance means I matter. I am important. I am somebody. I'm a person of value. How do you show to your child that they matter to you? It's not through words that we say, "Oh, you're so special," or "You're so amazing." Words are important too, but it's through the felt sense of significance that they develop a deeper sense of self-worth. Think about ways that you can show to your children that they matter, that their opinion matters, that they are important, that they're valuable. How can you show that in your day-to-day interactions? I forgot to mention that when I talk to parents about the 6 needs, I often give them the opposite of the needs, so to speak, to make it a little more understandable. So safety, and what would be the opposite of safety is threat, fear, threat. Respect, what would be the opposite of respect is disrespect. Acceptance, what would be the opposite of acceptance is rejection. In this interaction, does your child feel rejected by you or accepted by you? Oftentimes when I ask parents, how do you show to your children that they matter, that they feel significant, or that you accept them, it's a little more confusing. But if I say, in that instant that you described, in that example, in that situation, did your child feel insignificant? It's more powerful. Or in that instant, did your child feel disrespected or disconnected from you? So the opposites sort of help us understand the need better. The opposite of autonomy would be control. The opposite of significance, insignificance. And the opposite of connection would be disconnection or separation. And we'll get to the connection need next. So significance is, again, an important need because when we show our children that we value them, that they matter to us, that they are important, and through accumulated experiences, they develop a sense of self-worth, right? And it's so important to have that inner knowing that I matter. Many adults struggle with this. So the next need is the need for connection. Again, we're all wired for connection. We're social beings, and the need for connection is an important one. You can be with your children 24/7, and your child may not feel connected to you. I mean, you can think of different situations with your partner, for example, right? Physical proximity doesn't mean connection, or the fact that you love your children doesn't mean you're connected to them. When I talk about connection, I talk about two flavors of connection, two different types of connection. The overall relationship, how connected you are in your relationship with your children, and the moment-to-moment connection. When children feel connected, they want to cooperate. They want to do things for us. They are eager to collaborate and cooperate. When the connection level goes down, children's cooperation level goes down too. And so what happens most frequently is when children feel disconnected from their parents, whether it's on a relationship level or on this day-to-day connection level, they don't listen, they tune out, they ignore the parent, and on and on. And when the parent has this behavioral lens, they start to see that as disrespectful, rude, defiant behavior or bad behavior or misbehavior and start to address the misbehavior. But the root cause was the lack of connection that the child feels towards the parent. And human connections fluctuate. All of our relationships fluctuate. We go from connection to disconnection to reconnection, and we end up in connection again. So we cannot be 100% in sync and connected all the time. And when we find ourselves in disconnection, we need to do reconnection rituals to end up in connection again, right? So when you feel connected to your partner or vice versa, and you know how it feels to feel disconnected from someone. And it is our job as parents, it's our responsibility to be the one to reestablish the connection with our children, especially when that connection has been broken for a long time. It is still our responsibility. This could be hard to hear for many parents, but if you have a hard time accepting that and you feel like your child has been defiant and disrespectful and how dare they talk to you like that, and you both feel disconnected and you feel that your child has to do the first step or they have to behave better first for you to love them. If you are in that frame of mind, that's a clear sign that either a trauma is activated or your attachment wound. So you need to do some work on yourself, seek therapy, or get help to sort through your feelings so that you can be the mature adult and take responsibility and rebuild that connection with your child and regain that trust. It's always possible, even in severe cases when there is a big disconnect. So I am very hopeful for that. And children are always waiting for parents to make that step of reconnection. Always. Like I said, I worked in a correctional facility. I can give you so many examples, heartbreaking examples, when the parent makes that initial first step, as awkward as it might be, as vulnerable and messy it might be, children are always waiting for you to connect with them. They are always eager and willing to repair. So let's talk about, again, I can say so much about each of the needs. I can speak for an hour about connection, about significance, or about autonomy, which is coming up, which is one of my favorite needs. But for today, I just want to give you an overview. I should give you an example to highlight how in one small incident, we can dishonor, sort of, not meet all of the needs of our children. For example, my daughter asked me if she can have an Apple Watch. Now, that's not a need, right? That's not a need, that's a want. And there's a big difference between needs and wants. When I'm speaking about acceptance, significance, connection, safety, these are real, valid, critical emotional needs of children. But when a child says, I want to get my nails done, or I want to get an Apple Watch, or I want a hoverboard, that's not a need, that's a want. So but there's a big difference. As parents, we need to meet our children's needs as much as possible. We need to be sensitive, responsive, conscious, attuned, but their wants is a whole different story, right? You don't have to give them everything they want. So when my daughter asks me, can I have an Apple Watch for my birthday? Because of my upbringing, my first initial response that wants to come out of my mouth is, no, of course not. You already have a phone, or some answer like that. But I pause and I say, tell me more. What's about Apple Watch that is so interesting? How are you going to use it? How different it is from an iPhone? Because I personally have no idea. And then she starts talking and sharing and telling me more about her wish, about her desire. That doesn't mean I'm going to say, yes, I'm convinced. Let's go. Let's get you the Apple Watch. But I'm being present. I'm showing interest. Curiosity is huge. And I'm being genuinely interested because I have no idea what the Apple Watch can do. In that situation, my child feels that she can express herself. She feels accepted. She feels connected to me. She feels important that I'm asking serious questions and she's giving me answers about this technology that I have no idea. And she feels safe enough in that moment to share with me. That's a small example, right? But imagine if I did the opposite. That my first response was, no, you're so entitled. You have everything. Now you want an Apple Watch. I can't believe you. You're so ungrateful. How dare you? What do you need the Apple Watch for? You already have an iPhone. I don't even want you to be on devices, period. Right? It can take that turn. And in that moment, my child will not feel connected to me because I missed the mark. I completely ignored, disrespected, disregarded her wish. And she may feel unimportant, that she doesn't matter to me at all in that very moment. She loses the connection to me in that moment, and she may talk back and say hurtful things even. She doesn't feel accepted for sure, because acceptance, I didn't accept her in that moment. I didn't show respect for her desires, her wants. I didn't show interest, curiosity, or presence. And she may even lose the safety just a little bit, right? Depending what the state of the relationship is, again. But if such incidents happen over and over again, what's the cumulative experience that our children have with us? So let's talk about the need for autonomy. The need for autonomy is a complicated one for a lot of parents, but once they understand, they are very good at identifying this need in their children. This need emerges around the age 15 months, right? When your child first says, me, I do it myself. They want to do things on their own because it feels great. As human beings, we are autonomous human beings. We have a need for connection, dependency, but we also have a deep need for autonomy. So a young child wants to climb, wants to open, wants to explore the world and do things on their own and master skills because it feels amazing. The opposite of autonomy for me is control. So when children feel excessive control from parents, that their need for autonomy is stifled, they show it with their behavior. As I said, needs and behavior are connected. So when the needs are not met, we see through behavior. And let's say your 4-year-old child does not have an eloquent, articulate way of saying, Mommy, my need for autonomy hasn't been met lately, or my connection need hasn't been met. They act out, they show with their behavior. So it is up to us to understand the needs and meet the needs and not address the behavior right away, but to see the underlying reasons, the why of the challenging behavior. And when the need for autonomy is not met, children usually show it with defiance. They say no to everything. They are not agreeable. They defy all the time. They don't listen. They run away. They tune you out. The need for autonomy shows up in that kind of way. Oftentimes, let me tell you something. In social media, I see this memes or graphics, things of this nature, and posts by parenting experts and people who are advocating for conscious parenting. They sort of have this mono view of, when your child is not listening or your child is acting out and challenging behaviors, it's a need for connection. And you and your child are not connected. You need to do connection. So this connection gets a lot of spotlight, but connection is not the only need. In fact, when children are defying you, that's not the need for connection that is not being met. It's the need for autonomy. So how can you decrease control, increase autonomy so that you will not be faced with a lot of defiance? One way, and again, I can say so much about autonomy, and again, depending on the age of the child, right? If with teenagers, they have an increased need for autonomy. You want to give them plenty of autonomy and definitely decrease control, and not control at all, but be a guide, a supportive coach individual for your children. Because the moment they feel that you're controlling them, and control can come in a masked way as overly helpfulness, right? Control is not that outright control. It can come in many different forms. And so children will not like that. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good for adults when somebody controls us or tells us what to do, how to do it, when to do it, how to think about things, what to wear. By default, children don't have a lot of say about their life. So we want to give them power to choose when the choice matters to them. So how can you honor the need for autonomy in a teenager is way different than how you would meet that need in a toddler or a preschooler, right? Even though all children have the same need, how we meet that need is way different. A teenager, as I said, has an increased need for autonomy. For example, with my teenager, I wouldn't say, come on, you got to do your homework now. I would never say that to my kid because she's in charge of her homework, in charge of her life. I want to convey that I trust her and she has autonomy to take care of her own studies. So I may say, instead of saying you have to do your homework now, I would say, what's your plan about homework? Or not ask at all, right? If I'm at that point in my relationship with my child. With a first grader or second grader, you may say, I want you to finish your homework by 6 p.m. by dinner time. That gives them a time frame, but you're giving them autonomy to do it whenever they want between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. Again, it depends on a child, it depends on a family, but you do want to give your children a lot of autonomy. With the preschooler, for example, giving them choices. However, this is a very tricky subject. I find that many people take it too far and they offer too many choices and confuse and overwhelm their children, especially young children. And you want to give choices to your child when the choice matters to your child. If your child is adamant about a specific cup, let's say a blue cup and a pink cup. And if your child is adamant about the blue cup, then you know that choice matters to your kid. But if your child doesn't care, has not been showing interest in the color of the cup, you don't want to say, what cup do you want to use today? You want to use the princess cup or the elephant cup? It doesn't matter. I think parents take this too far. And that creates a very picky, fussy individual, a child first, and then an individual, and not easygoing kid who is constantly looking for choices where choices don't matter. An example, once I was in a restaurant with my daughter. They opened a new burger place in my town many years ago. And while we were waiting to place an order, there was a dad with 3 kids, and the dad was giving the kids some choices. He says, do you guys want to sit by the window or by the wall? Do you guys want to sit at the tall table or at the booth? Do you guys want to sit at the metallic tables or chairs or this? Do you guys want to do this or this? By the time we placed our order, I was losing my mind, just trying to keep up with this parent, because it doesn't matter in the end of the day where we sit, how we sit. But if you create this kind of pattern, then it's going to matter to your kids. Then they're not going to be easygoing, right? They're going to give you a hard time. It doesn't matter. But if it does matter for your kid, then that's a different story. Then the choice matters. And if you have 3 siblings and they do fight about where they sit and things that matter to them, you want to address that. So there is a difference. So giving children choices is great. It gives them a sense of autonomy, especially young children. Instead of opening the entire closet and saying, what do you want to wear today, sweetie? And your child chooses like a tutu and a firefighter's outfit, and it's cold outside. Now you're going to have a power struggle because you open the entire closet and your child made a choice. The parent has to make the executive decision in this situation. Let's say, put away the dress-up toys somewhere else and have just seasonally appropriate clothing hanging there, so that if your child chooses any of them, that's okay for you. But you make the first choice of narrowing down the choices. And then you can give your child an autonomy within that. This brings me to the point of, I teach something called the freedom frame, that we need to create that protection, that frame, so to speak, and give freedom within that frame to our children. If the frame is too open, the child doesn't have a choice. It's anarchy. That's not freedom. Freedom comes with responsibility, right? It's hard to explain this without the visual. So I'm going to skip this part and say a few more words about autonomy. How can you nurture the sense of autonomy, this need of autonomy in children? You can stop doing things for them, the things that they can do themselves, even though it may take longer, but they need to practice and get better at certain things. If you're constantly suggesting how to do things, even though suggesting is a nicer way than outright control, that's also taking that autonomy away from them, right? It's you making decisions, making suggestions. The opposite would be to just ask questions to your children. How do you plan on doing X? What are you going to do about such and such? Instead of, maybe you should do it this way, right? It's like, no, Mom, I want to do it my way. So honoring the sense of autonomy is so important. Children feel freer. Give them opportunities to make decisions. That's how they're going to get good at decision making, especially older children. You don't want to ask your 2-year-old, so what shall we eat for dinner today? For the entire family, your 2-year-old should not be making that big decision. But if you make the executive decision of preparing a meal, you can say, would you like to have carrots instead of broccoli or such and such, right? You can give a smaller choice within the bigger choice that you have already made. Offering solutions to their problems. When you're listening to your child, they're talking about their friendship problems or school problems, things of this nature. Again, listening, being patient, holding space is key. And once the child feels heard and seen, they can come up with solutions themselves. Or you can say, how are you gonna address that? Because you want to convey to your child that I have faith and trust that you can handle this. Especially with older kids, this is crucial, right? If your child complains about the teacher, about the grade, you don't want to immediately say, you know what? I should talk to the teacher. I should talk to your coach. How about if I do this? Let me call that parent. If you take charge right away, you undermine your child in that moment. Your child doesn't feel that they have a sense of autonomy, that they're capable, that they can do something about it. The main thing is to honor that sense of autonomy so that they can feel empowered. And if we just listen, offer guidance and support in that moment, and convey that they can deal with their own problems. Again, depending on the age of the child, right? I don't have specific examples, but it's important to honor that sense of autonomy. And the child will find their own solution. And if that solution doesn't work out, they can find a different one. It's important that we help them brainstorm solutions, apply, execute ideas and find a different solution. It's more important than the right decision, the right choice, the right solution in that very moment. Because learning life skills is way more important than the right solution in that moment. A lot could be said about the need of autonomy, but I want to move to the last need, the need for acceptance. As I said, the opposite of acceptance is rejection. In any interaction throughout the day, does your child feel rejected or accepted by you? Acceptance is this fruitful soil. When we accept someone fully, they grow into their fullest potential, into themselves authentically. And acceptance doesn't mean, I accept my child. And then when they cry or when they have desires or dreams or fears, we say, no, stop that. I don't like that. Think this instead. That doesn't mean full acceptance. Full acceptance feels differently. And when I say acceptance, I mean acceptance for who they are fully, acceptance for their self-expression, acceptance for their thoughts, feelings, particularly, which many of us have a hard time accepting, quote unquote, negative feelings in our children, uncomfortable feelings, acceptance of their dreams and wishes and desires. Doesn't mean we have to meet their every need and give them what they want all the time, but we can receive and accept so that they feel accepted. It's a beautiful need that many of us have, and we're all trying to be accepted by others. We can convey acceptance by just not even saying anything. That non-acceptance, that unacceptance can be conveyed by even a look. You don't even have to say anything. If we use demands, commands, threats, shaming, punishments, we communicate unacceptance. So before you say no to your child, think about that no. Think about the why you are saying that no. Before saying the no, try to listen and be curious. Ask questions and be there and receive what your child has to say. So to summarize again, the 6 critical emotional needs of children that I work with are safety, respect, acceptance, autonomy, significance, and connection. And if you are interested in my class, The Why of Challenging Behaviors and the How-To of Dealing with Them, which is a fantastic class for any parent, toddler, preschooler, to teenage years, really, you can take that class and understand your children's behavior, start meeting their needs better, and other contributing factors to challenging behaviors, and building stronger, deeply connected relationships with your children. If you have questions or comments, please get in touch. I would love to hear from you. If you would like to do an on-air coaching call for the podcast, you can go to authenticparenting.com/coaching and fill out a very short application, and I'll be in touch. If you would like to work with me, you can go to my website, authenticparenting.com/services, and get in touch with me. I would be thrilled to support you on your parenting journey. And lastly, I hope you will see your children's behavior differently through the lens of emotional needs and try to pinpoint and decode and understand what each behavior communicates. You need to translate their behavior and decode and meet the need. Have fun with that. And think about the ways that you're currently meeting your children's emotional needs and celebrate that. I hope you found this episode helpful. Until next week, connect to the present moment, to yourself and your children. I am Anna Seewald. Thank you so much for listening.